How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lone Wolf, and today I'm going to do a review on the TUZ 108 Warthog. And yeah, it's just been released in the new map that's came out in Mandra, and yeah, I'll put it through its paces and we'll see how it does. So first thing is the engine. If you go down to the bottom engine, the power regardless is S+, which is a good thing, and I would say it is as well. It's just a bit less fuel and blah 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 on the bottom engine, but I assume it's better. As for the gearbox, I'm mainly going to stick with high range. I'll explain why, but I do use a bit of off-road as well. I think the off-road's pretty decent in this, because it's got so much power. As for the three lots of suspension, obviously you've got the stock suspension. The active suspension is alright, I'll show you in a minute. I can see the reason why some people want to use it. It can lower the like centre of gravity a bit. You do have to have the smaller tyres on it though. Like with the stock suspension you have to have the smallest ones. With the active suspension you can have that size, but then with the raised suspension you can have that size, and they also sit wider as well. They do negatively affect the handling, I would say, compared to these. I do use a bit of the muds in this, but I'm generally going to stick to these, and I do prefer the look of the muds and all sorts, but I just find the handling isn't quite there for me. The winch, I've got the strongest one on. It hasn't got an autonomous option, which would probably be nice because it isn't the hardest to roll. As for the snorkels, basically, because I've got this like roll cage frame on, it's removing it if I put the tallest snorkel on. So if you prefer that frame, I'd just stick the second tallest snorkel on, because the front of this floats anyway, so you ain't ever going to be like dunking it to that kind of point. And then yeah, as for the frame add-ons, you've got a repair van body that's 500 points. You've got a single flatbed, but you can't have like the sideboard and the crane at the same time. You also can't have the crane and the saddle low at the same time. It's got a fuel tank, it's only 600 litres. Personally, I'd rather put a sideboard on and put a scout fuel trailer just in the back of it. Anyway, as for the roof, you've got the fog lights, which are like just a light, a kind of little lamps that go out to the side, and a sun visor. And then all these bumpers, if I'm honest, I've lined them up with the boxes in the background. They're all about roughly the same, and the ground clearance on this is pretty damn good. I like that bumper, I think, the best, but I'm just sticking with this roll cage one at the minute. Yeah, they're all so close to each other, I'd just choose which one you prefer. And then with exhausts, I'd just stick with the stock exhaust because it sticks out kind of at the bottom to the left, and this does smoke a little bit from what I was noticing earlier. And yeah, the other two exhausts are just going to put it up into your third person camera view, so there's no point really. It's not even like they're particularly fancy, they're just like a pipe. As for the colours though, the black looks pretty good, grey, white looks pretty good as well because it shows up the angles quite well. This camo got quite a nice colour to it on my TV at least. I like that silvery looking camo because it's kind of, I don't know, I think it suits the snow and that. Those two green options are like, to be honest, I think all the camos are pretty nice, but yeah, that silvery grey one sort of wins for me. And then they've added these new things since. I've got a bobblehead dog or something, an Ace of Spades card, and some reindeer with wheels as a sticker, and that's about it. Anyway, so yeah, we'll go outside and we'll take a look at it. I think it looks pretty cool, to be honest. It reminds me a little bit like, you know, the Mercedes AMG, but like the back's been cut off. It sits quite tall though, considering it's quite a small truck. Inside, it's not the newest looking, but I quite like the look of the dash. It reminds me of some old cars that I remember as a kid and that. Yeah, looking around, the mirror's actually a decent size, and I've got a back window which is nice. 3 seats, not quite a bed, but still squeeze a super wank in if we need to. As for the mirror, that side, like I said, I can't actually see my tyre, but the mirrors, I don't know, they seem alright. When I look out the back, I can just see through the gap my chain tyre. I suppose really, if that was that much of a problem, just put the different bumper on without the roll cage. Yeah, the horn, I mean, it's not a massive truck, so I wasn't expecting some big loud foghorn thing anyway, but yeah, it's okay. When we start the engine, the revs don't climb that quickly, which is surprising considering how much punchiness there is to the engine once you go in. It revs up to about, I assume, 2.750, 2.8, somewhere around there. And yeah, when you set off, especially with the high range gear with a high range gearbox, you can get a bit drifty, so just be careful on that. I can't compare the saddle low trailer because it won't have them, but as you can see, these trailers all sit pretty nice and high. Like overall, it has got pretty decent ground clearance and stuff. It's certainly not a major issue with it, I would say. I believe now, I'll just show you quickly with the active suspension. Obviously I've had to get this next size down of tyres. As you can see, it goes up and down a little bit, but it's not a whole lot. It's like, you're talking a couple of inches, and I'm sure to a degree it does make a little bit of difference, but I think this truck is a little bit tippy anyway, so I don't know, like, if I really didn't want to tip, I'd take a different truck. I was just looking there, because I've smashed the suspension. Somebody was telling me, and cheers for letting me know, that it still works, goes up and down even when the suspension is broke. So then I was just curious how low it sits if you've just got normal suspension on, or the raised, but you've collapsed the suspension, so yeah, I had to damage the suspension. It sits kind of, the wheel arch is almost sat on the tyre, so there's not that much difference in it. Not that I'm recommending it, but I have done it before, and I've said where sometimes breaking the suspension on your truck helps the handling, there's less damage to be taken, unless you drift into a post like that. Yeah, just, again, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but I don't know, if you do smash your suspension, try out the truck, because some of them ain't as bad as you would think. They still go along pretty nicely, and like I said, they sit very low, so the centre of gravity goes a bit lower. So, and this is one reason why I'm using the high range gearbox at the minute. As you see, as I came out of there, because I've already put it in high, this thing does the Jeff Special very well, by the way, which is, yeah, it's best off watching my video about it because it's a bit long to explain. But if you go into high range, the high gear, sorry, before you're like beyond the high range speed, then it'll just sit in high range pretty nicely. Once you're going pretty fast, if you just drop it up into high gear, that's basically the simple version of doing the Jeff Special, and it will take off like a mad one. But yeah, once you're just at high gear, it sits at quite a nice speed. And as you can see, that mud there, I'm not saying it worked that smoothly every single time. I've been across there 4 or 5 times. But I was able to kind of stick it in high gear and just skip along the top of the mud and the water there, and still made pretty nice progress. And then now when I'm in the high range, yeah, it's just quite a nice speed. It's not ridiculously rapid because it's not got massive tyres. So it's like, for one rotation of the wheel, I'd say it's slower than the Taiga, for example, that's going to have like 51-inch tyres. Here's another go of it through here in like auto and low range. And I wouldn't say that it struggles through here. It'd get through here every time. But as you can see, it's like, it's not the heaviest truck. It has certainly got a bit more weight to it than the TUZ16, and I believe that does help it a bit, as somebody said as well. Like, it does help with the handling a little bit, and I do agree. But yeah, it's just because it's not the biggest truck anyway, and there's not a whole lot of weight there. It's like, it doesn't plant itself down, so it can bleed a lot of power just by wheel spinning rather than, yeah, obviously trucks on the other end of the scale, like the Club and stuff, are just so heavy and planted in the floor that they can use their power basically. Unless you're going up a steep hill, they might wheel spin a bit, but yeah, you can see a minute ago I just rolled it, not on purpose obviously. It's like I said, there's not specifically a lot of weight in the chassis, I would say. Like, I wouldn't say the cab is particularly loaded either. They're probably both weigh roughly the same-ish. Maybe there's a slight more in the chassis, but as you start to tip, there's no resistance that wants you to go back to your wheels particularly. It's just like, once it starts going, it can go. But I wouldn't say it's against you as probably as bad as the Royal. The Royal tips quite a lot. The ANK does, I suppose. The Voron D does feel like it's got some weight, like high up in the roof as well. Yeah, this just feels generally quite light. Like you can see there, I was able to fortunately turn into it. I caught it. As for these rocks, if I'm honest, damaging the suspension wasn't really a worry for me. You can see I took one hit there, but I wouldn't say the suspension is particularly weak, and because it has got quite nice ground clearance, it's not too bad, considering it is a pretty quick truck, so I'm more likely to take the odd one damage. What I'd be more concerned with going over rocks like that is hitting one, like basically and tipping over, just like getting sprung over to one side. It didn't happen to me going across there. I'm not saying it's ruthless for tipping over, but it's definitely not up with like the best trucks for not doing it. Knock that anti-terrorist barricade out of the way pretty nicely. They're still obviously pretty strong. They've not calm them down during the update, as far as I can tell. At this point, if I'm honest, I just wedged my remote with the accelerator stuck down, like against the chair a bit, and yeah, I think I went and made a drink or something. I left it. I've obviously edited a pretty big chunk out. I'm going along at this speed. I did try, not through there, but even with the off-road gearbox with a high-low, it's almost too punchy in high-low, so it wheel spins anyway, so medium-low in that sort of situation seemed to be better anyway. But yeah, it wasn't that rapid through there, and again, it's just not got the weight to plant itself to have that, like, better speed through that sort of situation. It's not like it gets stuck there, but it's just not really going to go fast. Going through the snow in the high gear, it ticked along as they all do. They all slow down there where it gets a bit deeper snow. But it did climb over that barrier, absolutely no issues. I've climbed over quite a few barriers tonight in the last day or two, and it does climb over them very nice. I don't think I've ever caught the petrol tank or anything like that. I knew there it'd roll, but I had to try it. Yeah, as you can see, skips along there nicely though. I was coming back just to try and give it another bit of a smooth run. See there though, where it does hit the deep snow, it does slow it down a lot because it's not now weighting itself through that back to some grip underneath it. So before I started tipping it, I put the winch on fairly early, and yeah, like that, I mean, got over no issues. Like power wise, it is very good. I do like it for the power. And again, climbs over there, no issue. The rear wheels hesitate for a few seconds, but nothing too special if I'm honest. All things considered, I'm pretty happy with that. It's a pretty tall section of barrier to jump over because it's lower on the other side, and yeah, this is not a massive truck or anything, so I mean, like I said, it does go pretty nice speed. I've been pretty happy tonight with I suppose how much I was able to fit in. God damn it, that's what she said. And yeah, because this thing isn't slow, like when I do some videos of the slower stuff that struggles a lot in a lot of areas, like the video's getting on for 50 minutes and I have to cut. I just kind of know from like editing all the reviews I've done that yeah, vehicles like this, I was quite surprised at the end. Like there's as much footage in here, I'd say, as some trucks would take. The video would be more like 55 minutes getting on for 60. Areas like this though, I'll be honest, I think that tree carcass was holding me up more than the snow itself. Through the snow it's about this slow, or fast, whichever way you want to look at it. I would say it's on the slower side. And again, with more weight on it, like I tried it putting the fuel tank thing on the back, which, like I say, I'm not that keen on because it's only 600 litre. 600 is plenty, but I don't know why it's 2/3 the amount of the Scout fuel trailer, really. Yeah, climbing up there, it rolled over to the left. And that's one thing that the custom muds do add to it. They do add a bit of width to the truck, so it does help with rolling, really, because yeah, it sits wider. I don't know how much it affects it as far as the weight in the custom muds go. I feel with a Taiga, having the custom muds on feels like it adds weight low down in the wheels. This and the TUZ16 Taz, I'm not so sure. Jumped over there very nicely though, and it didn't even damage its suspension as I bumped over the first bit, which is fairly rare, especially with the game's damage mechanics at the minute. So yeah, overall pretty nice jump. First time jumped over the wall, so we like a bit of that. Going through here though, I already had a feeling it was going to be a little bit iffy because again, not enough weight planting it down, but let off and accelerated again, and you can hear you get a nice like winding through the revs again. Punched its way through that far, blipped the throttle again, and managed to get through. So all things considered, I believe it made it through there more smoothly than the TUZ16. Quite a lot of lightweight trucks struggle through there. The drive on the way here felt really nice with this trailer. I was very disappointed to say though, when I got here, that's as far as I can turn because the trailer's hitting the back of the cab. Which, yeah, is pretty disappointing. I've just left this bit in because, like, I mean, look at it, it drives very nicely with this trailer on the back because it's just sat over the rear axles. It's adding a nice bit of weight to the trailer. I suppose there's like a bit of drag happening on the trailer which helps with like the oversteer or the driftiness. As much as I like drifting, like this just, I don't know, it all fits very nicely as this together. But the turning is an issue on it. But I went for like a 180 drift into there. I was going all out, all things considered. I think it went pretty well. Yeah, I don't use this trailer then. I did, but I edited it out. As you can see, this is about the only saddle low trailer where it just goes narrower at the saddle, so you can actually turn properly. But I don't really like this trailer for a couple of reasons. One, it glitched on me a while ago, and I've heard other people say the same. Secondly, it feels pretty heavy, it sits pretty low, it's got pretty small rear tyres, and I'd much rather have the like the sideboard semi-trailer or whatever it's called. It's just a quick bit of gameplay. I nearly did it with just this trailer with two, and then obviously I've got my single cargo thing on there. It does drive pretty nice as this setup, not as nice as it did with the the sideboard semi-trailer thing, I would say. But in the end, I thought the other videos have all used like the ramped flatbed if I can't use the saddle low. My real life advice for the saddle low would be, if you know where you're going and there's not any crazy tight turns, you could risk it, because sweeping along roads and that, it was fine. But if you need to do a U-turn, you're probably best off like disconnecting it. I don't know, yeah, it can be a bit of a hassle. You'd be better off bringing another truck then to turn it around or something. But if you're just driving along here from like the garage to the port, I probably would chance taking a saddle low semi-trailer thing, because it did drive pretty nice, and it just, the weight it added to the truck and everything was pretty good. Whereas this trailer, as you can see, because it's like just attached to the back, as I started to turn around the corner then and let off the accelerator for a second, the trailer was pushing my back end, and it basically made me drift around more. And you'll see it do the same again as the front wheels dug in. Just the weight of the ramped flatbed was pushing me round. Because this hasn't got a very long wheelbase, it does that quite easily. Annoyingly, I lost my cargo. To be honest, at this point, between trying the saddle low, the ramped flatbed, the gooseneck flatbed thing, the 2-slot cargo, I was like, sod it, I'm going for it, because, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily, I don't know, I was going to say I wouldn't highly recommend it for trailers. It's certainly more fun and gets going just on its own without a trailer, I would say that much. And I wouldn't necessarily want to be towing, like, yeah, ramped flatbeds with it across rough terrain. See, now though, I'd say it's got the power. It's pretty restricted in the revs because I'm in low range diffs on, but yeah, the power's there. It's just, I suppose there's so much power that it can wheel spin rather than really plant itself in the ground. And going along here is just show you a bit of a difference between the chained and the muds. I mean, I crashed there. The steering's pretty slow on it, and it can, like, yeah, it's not the best handling vehicle, but it's not the worst either. The chains, sorry, feel like they kind of bite into this road, and I got up in the high gear pretty easily back there before I hit the trailer. Going along now, it's relatively easy, little steering corrections, but nothing too special. And then going through here, I mean, it slows me down where it officially becomes like deep water, but once we're back into the shallow water, it's, yeah, you can see it's definitely got the power to motor its way through there. Once you get into them thicker bits of snow though, it's it does, yeah, slow it down really. So basically, I towed the trailer to about here and then let go of it and drove off. I came back with the muds on, and I reattached the trailers just to get out my own curiosity. I would say the custom muds have the edge pulling this trailer out. Bear in mind at this point the chained was pulling the trailer as well, so I wouldn't say that it's like night and day difference. It's just, yeah, I don't know, gut feeling, I'd say these have got the edge as far as like that situation. But overall, the custom muds just feel like they bog down, they wade into stuff, and it sort of restricts them. Like now, I'm not getting into high gear as easily as I was in the chained. It's just, yeah, like again, because there's not enough weight there, they're not like really forced down in the mud to where they grip, they're just kind of skidding on the surface. And I really do like the custom muds. I've got them on the Taiga because they suit the Tayga. They like with everything, with the weight characteristics of the Tayga and just the weight of it itself. They suit it very nicely, and they look cool on the Taz as well, TUZ16, but overall I do generally leave the chained on the TUZ16 because I just think the handling is a bit better. You can see now I was wading through the snow to the left, and then when I got through them rocks I clipped the snow to the right, and it just pulls your front end steering left and right a lot, and it just feels like a lot more work to keep it in a straight line. Whereas this, back with the chained, it's, yeah, just a little bit less erratic. I suppose really, I mean, if you think about a lightweight truck with custom muds on, the Khan Marshall, for anyone who's driven that, that's fairly similar, and if you could put the same size tyres on but chained, I bet that would handle a lot better, but obviously they've just limited it to where you can only have the big fat custom muds on it, which is fun for some situations, but it makes the thing handle like a nutcase. Yeah, going along here though, I mean, it's, once I'm going, like, it's going pretty nicely. I have, by the way, got the off-road gearbox on now, which, as I said, I would recommend for, depends what situation you're in, probably for Imandra, it'd be worth it. I personally, at the minute, just like the slight, silly, crazy, powerful aspect of it and just go flying around, messing around. But if I was going to start doing some proper missions with it, yeah, I mean, the off-road's very nice. The high range just feels a little bit slow for me. When I put it in high range, I prefer like just the level of speed from the high range gearbox, but in auto, once it gets up to 4th gear, it ticks along pretty nicely with like quite a lot of, yeah, urgency and power to it. Like, one thing I've said before is the off-road gearbox has rev limiters and speed limiters, and because they're harsher in the off-road gearbox to make the speeds slower than the high range gearbox, they can sometimes cap the speed or the revs too low, and then you don't get the full benefit of the engine power. So sometimes I almost feel like it's a bit of a nerf on some trucks, but with this it felt like it still was winding up to speed very nicely. Obviously, I suppose in certain situations it was nice to have the high-low, like the 3 options. I never used the low-low tonight, I don't think. So I was going across that bridge and tipped over to the left. Luckily, what I actually did was just save the footage quickly and restart the game because I didn't want to drive it all the way back round. So I just loaded it back up. Unfortunately for me, it just happened the last time it saved was like 10 feet back. So yeah, drove back over the bridge. It was probably me being a little bit impatient and stuff, but yeah, again, it does tip a little bit easily. I'd still happily use that bridge to cut over, but there is more planted stable things. But I wouldn't say that is this thing's area of expertise. Like, it is a bit mad and crazy when you're driving around, but I do find that quite fun. Like, I don't think it's here to replace, you know, the objectively the best trucks in the game. I don't think it's much of a contender overall for them, but as far as just having a laugh, the fun aspect of it, I do like that the power is definitely there, because if they gave us like a very gutless truck at this point, it would, yeah, it's not like that. I'm more leaning on the end of like adding rally cars and that for fun. Like, I don't have to go mental with it, but just a car that is like a rally car that can go flying along would be pretty fun. Just to, they built this game, the mechanics of the game are here, so it'd be nice to test out all areas of it, kind of slow and fast. So anyway, we're at the mud pit, the Devil's Mud as some people have called it. It's a pretty suitable name for it. I've got the off-road gearbox on still, and I've got the big custom muds on. And yeah, I brought the custom muds because I knew I was going to go through this mud and then I'm going to be off in the mountains, which handling is less of an issue then, because you're kind of turning left and right all the time, leaning on the side of hills and all sorts. But yeah, for going down the roads and that, or dirt tracks, I do find the chained just to be a bit smoother. You can see there though, I ended up going into medium-low because I actually think it was a little bit better than high-low. Just, I suppose, partly because of the power in this truck. It was basically making it wheel spin to the point where it's not got the weight to counter that, and it was, yeah, bleeding a lot of its power just by wheel spinning. So once it starts to get up the hill, there's deep snow, it was not amazingly fast in, but again, it still gets through it, it's just not going to set any lap records. But once we're into this, like the shallower snow, it's going up here very nicely. I was curious about now, because stuff like the Royal tipped now on that sort of leaning angle. This didn't. I apologise, there was a little glitch there, but I just drove forward. Luckily, it's still got the like nose test bit in. Again, it did pretty good. It's got a little bit of a nose sticking out. I believe some of the bumpers I've put on, or the bumper I've got on, sorry, does stick out a little bit, but yeah, overall it's the ground clearance is pretty nice on it, to be honest. And it's certainly not got a long snout like some of the trucks. See, I was about to tip there and I floored it down the hill to try and get out of it, but it still found a way to roll. And you can see there, it's not like it wants to roll, but it's not like it doesn't want to either. It just, once it started to go again a bit, it was like there was nothing in the tyres trying to weigh it back down, even though they were custom muds then, so I wouldn't say they seem to add low down weight like it does on the Tayga. I mean, sending the horse of the vehicle though, we flipped it back. I believe it had the Tatrin somewhere near there as well. Yeah, next up going for the rolling test, even though we just had one. And to be fair, you see, times like that, especially that I've got the custom muds on, it did kind of land very solidly back on its wheelbase and just stayed there. It didn't try and go again, so that's what I mean. It's not weighted high up, but it's just not really weighted low down. But even crawling around here, some trucks have had more hassle with than this thing. I was kind of pretty happy that it didn't even try and tip to the left then, just as I went around that corner. And also some trucks, when I've had to do that like steer back into it, it's rolled, so this didn't, which kind of lets me know it's definitely not the worst or anything. And yeah, overall I'd say it made it up there pretty comfortably. And even here, to be honest, I thought it would have tipped then. Probably not then, but yeah, I don't know, there's a few times I was like, oh, that's not bad actually. Like, again, it's not setting any records, but it certainly could be worse. I think with the TU Z16, I think this probably is a bit more planted still than that. Seeing how much I could push my luck, I knew it was going to come to an end eventually, but yeah, overall I'd say that was like gained back a little bit at the end there. Didn't quite get over to its wheels, but kind of the luck of the draw when you roll on a mountain like that. So next up we're going to go to the Quarry. And yeah, this is the setup I'd rather have. There's no way I'm dragging a bloody ramped flatbed through the Quarry, because I already know this thing just wouldn't manage it. It'd sit there wheel spinning. I already thought about it for a second there. Right at this second I'm towing a loaf behind me, but I end up disconnecting it, not because I was curious. I mean, the speed barely changed. I was in the middle of kind of drifting around a corner then. Yeah, just I wanted to see like what the trailer does, how much it drifts and everything. I will say though, and I tried this earlier, just not really in this review, I was driving along with this, and obviously because it was pretty quick I was smashing it up a bit. When I towed a loaf behind me in high range, with the loaf dragging along behind, it did actually set up the overall characteristics of this truck a bit better, where it wasn't drifting as much. I was steering, I was taking less damage just on random hits along the road and all sorts, so just throwing that out there. And it's not the only truck I've done it with. The Dolphin as well is a pretty, if you tow a loaf behind that, I don't know, it just seems to, not all the time, you can still get, especially these days, the random damage mechanics, but overall it was, it helps. So that's where it suffers though over, I don't know, again, say the Tayga. It's not the, not for lack of trying. Like, if you could put this engine in the Tayga chassis, I still think it'd be a pretty decent truck. I don't know what the power is between this and the Tayga, but I'm just saying, yeah, it's certainly got that aspect of it is there in abundance. But again, it's not like it isn't making it. It's just, yeah, it's not flying through there like it's nothing. Which again, I don't necessarily mind. Depends what I'm up to. Depends what mood I'm in. I certainly like that it can then fly back up to speed once you are through certain sections. So I'm going down there. I had no real worries for it, to be honest. Again, the nose clearance is pretty good. It didn't catch its nose or anything like that. You can see there, if it's going to tip, it's almost like on the Voron Grad, that has like the front axles sit quite nice and wide. On this, I would say, yeah, the overall chassis is still quite narrow for how tall it is. So it's kind of, its wheel sits inside its centre of gravity or whatever, and it yeah, just hasn't quite got the resistance to stop it. So I grabbed a slab. I ended up unpacking the slab so there's like no weight to the trailer. I still couldn't get out, so again sent in the horse, and of course he gets me out of there, which I can't really obviously do it in this test because it's like a 2-slot cargo thing I've added. But if I had a single cargo and I put something pretty heavy in the back, like bricks or whatever, I reckon this thing would drive through here, just as an example, like, better, because, yeah, I mean, I suppose at this setup, I could have had the fuel thing on the back. It'd certainly help get a bit more grip on the back. I don't know if overall it'd harm it. From driving around with the fuel thing, I will say, obviously, it's a lot of weight sat above the chassis, so it doesn't make it crazy, but it can help it tip. Yeah, going up here, the cargo is packed now again. It's wheel spinning, so it's just, yeah, it's not got the grip pushing it down. So I went back down the hill, unpacked the cargo, I was going to go back up. I kind of had a feeling, I know it's got less weight, so it's going to go up here, but I just mean, yeah, it's not really, like, I bet it could pull quite a lot of weight along a flat surface down the runway, but it's just not planted enough to dig in and pull this trailer along with it. But it wouldn't be my first choice for that kind of thing anyway. It's been more fun just kind of flying around with it, yeah, on its own, but obviously this is like the review. I wanted to test all aspects of it and stuff. This is kind of helps show it relative to some of the other trucks. I mean, going up here, it's not too slow. It didn't actually tip there, which at first I was umming and ahhing that it might be a possibility, but yeah, it went alright in the end. The cargo, I believe, at the minute is still unpacked, and there wasn't even any point in packing it. I already knew. I knew what was going to happen. I knew what the situation would demand. It does as well, by the way. I did this earlier on Black River. I believe I had, not the semi-trailer, I think I had that massive 5-slot trailer near the bottom of the list. And I started wheeling up a hill, but then I brought a loaf along. There you go, goddamn horse of a vehicle. Winched it to the front, and the loaf kept the nose of this thing down and got it up the hill pretty nicely. I'll probably put it in another video because I don't want to make this too long. But yeah, I'll show it soon because I suppose it was pretty handy. So I already knew what was going to have to happen. Send the loaf up there, get it in its little loaf hole. Funnily enough though, the winch on the loaf could just about reach this, and this was able to reach that, so I believe like the truck and the Scout winches are near enough the same lengths. Yeah, I mean the loaf didn't just pull it up the hill, started driving forward as well at the same time. That's why, as I've said before though, one of the many ways it's handy is just like a mobile winch point. It can get up near enough anywhere, and if you stick it somewhere and start winching to it, it generally is going to help you out. Went to go flying down here. You see, this is where The front dug in a bit, the weight of the rear trailer is just kind of pushing my back end. That hasn't got a lot of weight to it either, so it does lift up and scoot over quite easily. And it rolled. And of course, luckily, got a goddamn professional. See? That's why he's sending the horse. Funnily enough, at the minute, as you can see, the front of the TUZ is caught on that concrete slab. Like, even when I got rid of it, it was like there was some metal sparks flying, which I don't think does it for every cargo. I'm not sure, but either way, I edited some of that out, but I was hooked on that concrete slab for some reason. I don't think it's this thing's fault particularly. It went down there pretty nicely though. Got some nice little air off that that jump. Also managed to roll back to my wheels. However, it didn't last too long. As I said, if this thing could have an autonomous winch, I'd probably equip it at the minute. But it still has quite a nice crossover, like, it's basically a truck, and it can have truck trailers and stuff, but it also can have a roof rack, which is quite nice because most trucks, if not all near enough, don't have a roof rack. That's like, again, one of many reasons why I always take a loaf with me, because then I've basically got a truck with a roof rack. As for this ice, I just came here first to quickly try it with the chain tyres, and I kind of thought, oh, they'll probably just immediately punch through the ice. Well, not immediately, because I know there's not a lot of weight to this truck, but overall I kind of thought, yeah, they're going to punch through. And I was assuming, like, oh, the custom muds are wider, they'll be better. And, yeah, I mean, not to say necessarily that the custom muds wouldn't be better, but basically driving right down the middle of where it's all breakable ice, and there is probably the odd little bit where it won't break through, but there's definitely not many trucks that you could do this with. Which is another thing though that lets me know it is pretty light. Like cab and chassis really. As you see now though, as I'm going along, because I got the chained on, I was purposely letting off the throttle there so I didn't smash the suspension on that. Once I floor it now, I'm always getting a little bit of a drift, but it's quite easy to catch back. I'm still going in a pretty straight line. Again, I was feathering the throttle a little bit because I've already only got about a quarter of my suspension left, and I wanted to do a lap of battle on the ice. Just when I found out then how nicely it went across the ice, I was wondering if I could do a pretty quick lap of, yeah, the battle on the ice contest. But then, you see now quickly, this is when I came back, tried it with the custom muds and the chained. I suppose like now is when I start properly flooring it, but it's like, it seems to wade a bit more through the mud. It pulls my steering a lot harsher to the left then. Then I try and swerve back. Now I'm trying to build speed again and it's taking a little bit longer. Do you see where, like, I don't know, it's just, it doesn't feel like it handles as nicely or smoothly. You do pay a price, basically, for those tyres. Yeah, so we'll go for a quick lap of battle on the ice, because I was pretty curious to see how well it did. And to be fair, I only had literally 2 goes at doing this. I did one with the chained, and one with the muds. And yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think overall it went pretty nicely. Quite a lot of trucks punched through there. It punched through that bit with the chain last time. Sadly though, it dropped through here, which is one of the places that certainly cost me 5 or 10 seconds. And I know you could drive along like the snow to the right of me now, but in all honesty, this doesn't go through the ice very often, and particularly with the custom muds on, it'll wade through that snow pretty slow. You can even see there where I just clip the edge of the snow, it slows down. So even though it was riskier, I'll be more likely to get set like a best time in this thing if I chance it along the ice, where, assuming it doesn't punch through, then I can sit in high gear and just kind of motor along at this pace. And I have done this contest quite a bit. To be honest, I quite like this contest. Now I've found a few trucks. The car Marshall is surprisingly good on this. The Loadstar's not bad with the dual rears, but I always find, like, the front always punching for me. It's never really the back. Whereas stuff with custom muds, like I said, the car Marshall, this, the TUZ16's not bad around here. Yeah, a lot of this, and I've done it a lot of times. A breakthrough, yeah, here's definitely quite a commonplace. I do find that as well with the custom mods. When you say stop and you go to accelerate, partly due to it's got a lot of power, it kind of jolts the arse end down a bit and lifts like the front end up, your steering goes light, and it might just be like, you know you've got enough steering angle to miss a tree, but then you kind of accelerate, jump forward with a bit of understeer and then hit something because, yeah, you just had no steering for like the first 5 or 10 foot. Or it can go the other way where it snaps out, which I kind of, in many ways, part of the reason why I kept the high range gearbox on is I quite like an element of the lively handling because, I don't know, it sort of keeps it entertaining, I suppose. And it's nothing against the Tatran because it's a bloody good scout and everything, but it can almost be boring at times because it's so good and so reliable through certain situations that there's no excitement there. Whereas, yeah, flying down a road to the point where it's drifting a bit and all sorts, and I've got to try and control it, it just keeps me entertained while I'm flying across the map. One thing I will say is very good for nice speed, gets up to speed very well. Yeah, a bit of fun though. You can do the Jeff special. I was trying it then, just taking it out of four-wheel drive, sorry. But it does it pretty consistently regardless. Just go flat out down the runway and stick it in high gear. It's the simple version. Well, some trucks need to feather the throttle like Jeff was doing, where you say get in 7th, feather it, put it into high and all sorts. This truck, the TUZ16, there's a few that just let you do like the lazy version. The highway trucks let you do that pretty well. And you can see now though, when I'm going into the water, the front floats, which is why I was saying near the beginning, it doesn't really matter about the snorkel. I'd probably get the snorkel taller than the one that was on the wheel arch, but yeah, I don't think it makes any real difference. It has actually, like, it can tiptoe and it's driving, however, I tried that a few times tonight and it just keeps pulling to the right as I'm going around in the water, and I can't really steer or do anything about it. The Voron Grad and that, I seem to be able to steer even when I'm wheeling. This thing, not so much. So I wasn't able to say, I tried to aim it at the island over this bit of water, but yeah, I just kept sort of doing like a large U-turn on myself. And I was curious, I've not done this in every single review, but I did leave it in some, and yeah, for my own curiosity I wanted to try it out. I believe I did this on quite a few in my top 10 favourite trucks videos. And overall, like I say, it's not rapid, but the nice thing with snow at the minute is you do kind of sink into the snow and get a bit more grip. It's when you get to these rocky bits, but I would say the chain are better at gripping on this bare rock than the custom muds. I bet I'd be wheel spinning quite a lot now. However, I knew as I was turning, I didn't really have much choice, because if I didn't turn I'd start skidding my nose round and aiming down the hill anyway. But yeah, it's kind of where I was had a feeling it'd be going. It does seem to like to balance on its back end, like the mechanics kind of lock it in place pretty easily. I kind of got a bit lucky as I tipped over, I clipped the branches on the tree and it flipped me back to my wheels. And for another Jeff special, you can see it's when you drift it kind of can help it on its way a little bit. Smashing the summit, completely wipe the engine out. She's going nowhere. I mean, this pro gamer move. Skimmed a little rock. Name. Lady Warthogs. I'm gonna have to start I keep naming everything after fish for some reason. I'm gonna have to start on the mammals. Show a goddamn aardvark how to lick a hummer out the cliff. Do you know what, if I could do one thing, I would name an animal and an aardvark just to fucking move that Aardvark smug bastard in the first place in the dictionary. Just, I wouldn't beat him easily, like a AAA Aardvark. Be like, no, I'm going to just chronologically, alphabetically, going to beat you by one letter, the last letter as well, just to be a bastard. Yeah, going up this hill very nicely up here. I knew what was going to happen before it happened. I tipped to the left, tipped to the right, got it back to the wheels, tipped to the left, and I rolled. Not the only vehicle that's done it. I've been up there in a hell of a lot of vehicles, because if you've seen any amount of my videos, as you can tell, I do enjoy jumping off that cliff. And then, yeah, I don't know, I drove it into the water for no reason. Didn't really have any plans on where I was going. You can see already, though, it's pulling to the right. It's as if, and I've said this before, and I'm not 100%, but it's like the driver adds some weight, because it's quite surprising how many times it leans lower in the water on the driver's side. Went for another jump, though. I do enjoy flying it off there. I still think the TU16 had the edge when I got it just right in the high gear. I flew off that cliff, and yeah, I leapt about halfway across that water. So, overall though, I didn't really need to do a drowning test because the front floats, so it's not really going to drown, but I wouldn't say it's very usable in water. But anyway, other than that, overall, yeah, I do like it, I do enjoy it. It's been a pretty fun truck so far. Like I said, I don't think it's going to knock anything off the top spot for the best truck or anything like that, but I don't necessarily need that at the minute. I've still got plenty of trucks that can handle the job pretty well. The fact that it is pretty funny though, and like it's very nice motoring up through the gears, not just some trucks or scouts, they'll get up to like the 1st to 4th gear in the scout gearbox, or 1st to 6th is a bit slow and they pick up a bit in 7th and 8th. This one is just like motors all the way through it quite a lot. Even fully upgraded as well, it was only 73 grand, which was pretty cheap. And I only left this little bit in because I've just noticed it. Well, I noticed it when I was looking. These used to all be in like alphabetical order, didn't they? Where you kind of, if you was in America, it'd have the American trucks and then the Russian trucks, and they're all in alphabetical order. Now they're all over the place, like the Yar next to the Kolob and all sorts. So at first I was thinking, oh, can I even buy this thing? But yeah, it's just randomly plunked in the middle of the list now. There it is though, 34 odd grand, which is pretty cheap for essentially a truck. Like, that's one thing I will say, it definitely goes in this thing's favour. It's not 180 grand by the time you got it fully upgraded. I know we find it for free on Imandra, but still. I could buy another one of these for 30 grand, upgrade it and that. Yeah, I just think that's pretty cool. I could have 2 of them for 140 odd grand. So that's about it. If you got the update, I'd obviously say it's worth getting. It's pretty easy to get, considering the difficulty of Imandra. It's only at the airport on the map, which is pretty close to the beginning, all things considered. And yeah, that was about it for today, but I just wanted to add this in at the end. I decided to put it in, that's what she said. Yeah, this is it towing this trailer, which is a pretty big trailer, and it's going surprisingly well with it. I didn't realise at the time, as I just went around that corner, obviously the corner of the trailer was hitting my truck that stopped me turning. I just thought I was kind of understeering. I still made it round the corner. I also didn't steer until pretty late with that corner, so I would say you probably could scrape by with the trailer like this. You could hear that predator croaking then. It's still after me. Yeah, I've put the cargo on. It's still ticking along reasonably well. As I get up to here though, this is kind of the few reasons why I left this in. As you can see, it starts wheeling because there's just too much weight, like, yeah, kind of sitting now behind the rear axle, and it's lifting it up. So I wanted to come back and try some with the loaf. As you can see now, I added a roof rack on just to see if that did weigh the nose down, if it made any difference. But as I'm driving along with the loaf now, I'm in high gear, I'm still motoring along pretty nicely, but it's just kind of slowing me down to the point where I don't take too much trollish damage. Still get bits like that that are just on nothing. But it's also kind of keeping it very in line with the steering, because I'm kind of dragging something behind me. It's kind of keeping me in check a bit more. So I set it all back up, put the loaf in front, and now I'm driving in the Warthog, but I'm just winched to the loaf. But because there's no distance really, it's keeping the nose down, and then it's just a shame with like the way this computer drives the truck you're winching to. The loaf just started steering off to the left. So yeah, I jumped in the loaf this time, reversed up to it, attached the winch, and yeah, the loaf's such a professional. He's pulling them up the hill, which it definitely wouldn't be getting up on its own by this point, because not only was it wheeling, but if it was able to drive itself up, it'd be pushing my loaf by now. So yeah, they actually make a pretty good pair. They kind of balance each other pretty well, because this thing can flip it a lot as well. So that's about it for today though. I hope that helps. I hope you enjoyed. Get yourself a loaf and a Warthog, and I'll be back soon.